Hey, did you know Long's Products is a family-owned janitorial supply with mops, brooms, trash bags, and they even have food service disposables, carry-out plates, and to-goes? Check us out.
We're going to go ahead and dive right in. Good evening, Central Louisiana. I'm Jack Henton, and this is UrbanCast, Let's Talk Show. Tonight, we're speaking to Larry Davis, a Republican candidate for the Louisiana Congressional 6th District. The current field includes Democrat Cleo Fields, Republicans Larry Davis, Peter Williams, Christian Johnson, and Monique Apini. And Monique is actually was born and raised right here in Alexandria. We're going to talk about representation. We're going to talk about crime, economic development, federal resources, party politics, and what Central Louisiana can expect if Larry wins the seat. And as always, this is your show. If you're watching live, drop your question in the comment. You know, we're going to definitely see if we can bring it into the conversation. But I do have quite a few, but I will be monitoring those questions out there. Larry, how are you this evening?
Man, it is a good day, Jack. We just stopped at a local business off the campaign trail and stopped in real quick to do this interview. So we're having fun. We're having fun.
Y'all having fun. Well, I tell you what, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and you know all that stuff that the folk want to know about you, man.
So of course, my name is Larry Davis. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, North Baton Rouge. Graduated from Denham Springs High School. I currently am a member of Salem Baptist Church and live and reside in Livingston Parish. And so I've been actively involved in my communities since I was little. I used to tell my parents all the time I wanted to preach and teach. And so the Lord has honored that in ways that I didn't think were necessarily in those guidelines, because preaching is what you would imagine behind a pulpit, and teaching is in the classroom. But the Lord has, since growing up, has told me that you can preach and teach, and it doesn't have to be in those facets. And so community service has been the heart of where God has led me, from Boy Scouts to being a part of book clubs to joining local organizations like Kiwanis, starting my own organizations like We the People, which is a nonprofit that promotes conservative ideas, and starting a media company, Red Republic Media, where we express views where people can go and find out about what I believe. So I've just always had a heart to serve and to advocate for what I believe.
Okay, let's just go right into it. Congressional District 6, currently a majority Black district with approximately 54.4%. With what is your specific plan to ensure that the people who need the most help receive it, even if they don't align with your party preferences?
So first off, Jack, that's a great question. As we started this campaign, when I pivoted over to CD6, that was part of my prayer discussion. What can I do? What is my call? And my job is to represent all Louisianians. And so, as I said before, my job is to advocate for the people of CD6, regardless of their political leanings. But there's so much that we agree on than what we disagree on. And we don't have to agree that the citizens of CD6 need better education. That's not a partisan issue. Better schools, that's not a partisan issue. Making sure crime is actually tackled and criminals are going to jail and not reoffending, that's not a partisan issue. Making sure that American tax dollars actually goes to American citizens, that's not a partisan issue. That's the heart of what makes each of us Americans. And so my job is to make sure that money stays into American citizens' hands, that the family is protected, and that families and churches and local organizations within Congressional District 6 gets the right opportunities to grow and to advocate for their people. So the main answer to the question is advocacy. I have to advocate for the constituents of CD6. It doesn't matter what they believe politically. And just to point at my opponent, you don't see him go to the opposite side of the aisle as he represents this district. And I'm one person that believes in unity, not division, because the division that we see in our country today is unnecessary. We don't need the kind of division based on racial or any other thing. We need to unite because we're all Americans. We all pay taxes. We all have to go to work 40 hours a week, most of us. We all are trying to raise a family and thrive and survive. And so every person needs to be represented and provided an opportunity in CD6.
You said labeling. I think when you first qualified, you said labeling a district as belonging to one political party was wrong. How do you plan to build trust in communities that historically vote Democrat?
Education. It is my job as the candidate to meet with the stakeholders in those communities like you, Jack, who are able, because me and you talked before the show and I said, I want to meet with every person on the campaign trail.
Mhm.
My team has to tell me, Larry, that's not possible. We don't have enough time. But
Mhm.
the prayer is that once I'm elected, I will have that time to meet with everyone in the district. But
Mhm.
talking with the stakeholders, educating them, letting them know who I am, that I'm not an enemy, that I'm not beholden to one person. I'm a Republican because of my conservative beliefs, not because of a head of a party or a head of anything. I made a personal choice to be a part of this party. And I want to encourage that the people who share my skin color, the people who have the same heritage that I do, I want to encourage them to do that too, to be independent in thought, not to give their belief system or their practices to a political party, to check their lives. Do you agree that all babies should be alive? Yes. Do you agree that crime in your community needs to go down? Yes. Do you want to pay less in tax dollars? Yes. Do you believe in the sanctity of family? Do you believe that the family is the center of everything? Yes, those are not partisan issues. So my job is to educate the constituents of CD6 of what it means first to be a Republican and why, as their candidate, they should vote for me.
All right. There will be pushback because, well, I want to ask you this question just straight up. Do you actually live in the footprint of CD6 or do you live outside of it?
I live outside of the footprint of CD6,
Okay.
but I
And
grew up there.
you grew up there.
Yep. Yep.
And
15 years. Yeah,
yeah,
15 years in the
now,
North Baton.
federal law allows, it allows you not to have to actually live in a particular district to actually run for it. But
Correct.
but here in Louisiana, we typically have to live in the district that we run. I think judges may not, and maybe some other, it maybe some other ones that might have some kind of waivers or whatever. But do you think you're going to get any pushback on that?
No, sir. So to put into context, you said right. So Congress is made up that way because, I mean, every 10 years, the lines are redrawn anyway based on population.
Hmm.
So naturally, someone may live in 5 and they're drawn right out of their district and they end up in 6, but they
Hmm.
still want to run to represent the district that they're in.
Hmm.
Secondly, I'm 20 minutes away from North Baton Rouge. My family still lives there. I still shop there. I still go visit family there. I still eat there. Baton Rouge is not 100 miles. It's not 1,000 miles away from home, and that's just the beginning of the district. And I think I want to point on that too. I'm not running just to represent North Baton Rouge. The district expands wide. Every candidate in this election for CD6 either grew up or derived from the North Baton Rouge area, except Mr. Williams. So we all have to make that trek across the district. None of us solely live in the whole district. We all are going to have to travel to understand the needs of the people. But I will also say this, we're all Louisianians. We all have the same culture. We all have the same foundational beliefs, which is why many of us have decided to stay here. So driving 20 minutes into a boundary line doesn't change the needs and concerns of that district.
What would you say to a voter who believes representation should come? Because you're gonna have that. So what
Uh-huh.
would you say to that one that just say it should you should be a part of us? I don't care if you moved out. What are you gonna say to them?
Well, I think the question there needs to be, what is a part of us? Because you have a current representative who, how many times has he visited the whole entire district, or met with the people, or gave them the needs that they need? And so the question needs to be, what does actual representation provide? And so I used this example recently at an event where I said, the Lord sends ambassadors. When the Bible talks about being an ambassador for Christ, an ambassador in the American context is Americans or Christians are sent overseas or to a place that they're not born into. It's foreign to them. They're sent there to go and represent the values of their home country. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge. That's my foundation, with the elementary and middle school in the North Baton Rouge area. I was sent, how I look at it spiritually, into Livingston Parish, into CD5, what just became CD5, to learn and to see and to understand. These are the resources that Congressional District 5 has. There's no reason that CD6 doesn't have that. There's no reason that North Baton Rouge doesn't have that. And as a brother in Christ, we can understand that we don't always know God's plans prior to them happening, but I can tell you his plans are unfolding every day in this race. And I thank him for the wisdom that I have gathered in my time living in what is now CD5, to be able to bring those resources into CD6. Because like I said at the press conference, all of the conservative Republican districts in this state are thriving. Two of the major Democratic-led districts in this state are not. We don't have jobs. Crime is out, out of character. Crime is just unnecessarily done, and we're seeing opportunity being fading away. And CD5 has everything. All the other conservative-led districts are getting opportunities. They're getting financial support and appropriations from federal dollars. They are growing, and the two Democrat-led districts are not.
You've outlined plans on your website how does your Central Louisiana fit? How does Central Louisiana fit into those plans?
So we are about to unveil some agriculture, because we didn't put agriculture on the website. And so Central, what we call the heart of Louisiana, there are still homegrown farmers in Central Louisiana that need to survive and be able to pass those farms on to families. My job is to get appropriations for that and to write laws where American farmers are prioritized over foreign farmers. I also want to pass legislation that stops and makes it illegal to purchase foreign land nationally. And that is going to directly impact CD6, because right now American farmers are going out of business because the federal government says it's cheaper to buy foreign. No, we're Americans. And so we need to put and prop up our American farmers, make sure that they have priority. That means that I want to put regulations on commercial businesses. McDonald's, if you build a McDonald's in the state of Louisiana or in the United States, you need to buy from American farms. Ground beef, chicken, all of that needs to be grown in America. We need to start putting the American people first. And so agriculture, crime. We see that Alexandria has crime issues. North Baton Rouge has crime issues. Well, why is that? It seems that the justice system says that we shouldn't hold individuals accountable, and yet they get out, they go murder, they go hurt, they go rape, they go harm other individuals, and they're not held accountable. We need to see laws that are passed that chastise and deal with criminals so that we don't have reoffenders causing issues on our streets. Those are the two biggest issues that I see that are facing Central Louisiana, but also innovation. We need to get federal grants and federal contracts to bring jobs to the heart of Louisiana. That can be done on day one, working with the president, working with any president, because Louisiana is ripe for growth.
You said on day one. So you're saying day one, Alexandria, Pineville, and these surrounding parishes that are a part of CD6 would begin to see action under your leadership?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that we're planning to do, and I've already talked to my chief of staff and comms director,
Hmm.
one of the first things I will tell you this, one of our first priorities, we have some soldiers that are in prison right now. In a military prison in America. And so that's a goal that I'm working on right now to get those American soldiers out of prison. And so my chief of staff will be dealing with that. That's actually like priority number one. But our second priority is to begin to do focus groups. Once we are elected, we are going to have our campaign office open in the heart of Alexandria, and we're going to begin to have focus groups. Because, like I've said before, my job is not to sit in my room and try to come up with ideas of what Alexandria and Pineville needs. My job is to go directly to the source, to talk to the Jack Hintons of the area to see what are the actual priorities that you need. Second or thirdly, after that is done, make that list, put it down the list of priority, compare it to the rest of the district, and get into Washington, find out where those issues or where those decisions are made to have them done. We already met with Julia Letlow today. We had a great meeting to figure out, Julia, when you did represent parts of Alexandria, what did you do to get the resources back to them? And so she laid the playbook out for us. And those are the relationships that my campaign is building now to make sure that that day one is actually the day after election day. And we can smooth sail into there and you can start to see some actual progress based on the needs of the west side of District 6.
Alexandria, Alexandria has seen tons of industry leave, and it started with kind of a big punch that we took was when England Air Force Base closed down here in Central Louisiana, in Alexandria,
Mhm.
and and since then we've seen the likes of Dresser, International Paper, McKesson, you name it, tons of real large companies, just lead the area, and we've seen no replacements to those. And if we have, and some things, nothing small, nothing major, with well above living wage type jobs.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've seen is we've seen, since we've lost all of that industry, manufacturing and and what have you, we've also seen that the increase in crime and different things of that nature. What industries do you believe can realistically grow in Central Louisiana, and what federal leverage would you um, use to attract them?
So I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. And
Hmm.
so the first thing to do is to look at the other parts of the state that
Hmm.
are thriving and surviving. Lafayette is thriving and surviving. They have small business growing there. I told somebody there the other day when we were campaigning, we ate at a local restaurant. I said, this food is probably comparable to New Orleans at this point. And so I want to go to districts across the state who are already doing these things, meet with their council, because Jack, I think this is important to differentiate. So at the federal level, advocacy is number one, passing federal laws that impact the nation, not just our congressional area, but the weight of the office is what matters. And so I want to take our councilmen, probably within the first 6 months, take our councilmen from each part of the district
Hmm.
to other areas, St. Tammany,
Hmm.
St. Landry, Lafayette, the south part of Baton Rouge, Zachary, St. Francisville, towns that match the Alexandrias and the Pinevilles of the Louisiana. Meet with them, have meetings so that our council representation can take notes. They can see how these other communities brought in people and chastised the crime and brought in innovation that does it. As far as federal leverage, just like I said, that advocacy goes. So I will have the opportunity to meet with corporations and CEOs. My job is to advocate for why they need to move to CD6, to be able to advocate to why their business will profit and grow here. Because you did a great job of labeling the crime issue with the businesses leaving, because we know any community that does not have wealth or have opportunity, most people go to crime and most people stay in poverty. And so our job is to advocate for that. So I want to advocate against that. I want to take our local elected officials from all across CD6 to good Louisiana cities that are thriving, so that we can take notes, bring those notes home, and have a full development meeting, not just for Alexandria and Pineville, but a CD6 planning commission to where we're working cooperatively across our district to make it better. That's how you do it. Collaboration, communication, and connections. That's how it happens.
Many residents here say two of the most pressing issues are crime and economic hardship. So they would definitely agree with what
They go hand in hand. Yep,
they
they go hand in hand.
What immediate federal actions can you take to impact crime in our community? Because when you now let's just talk about it. We'll talk about Shreveport. We'll talk about Baton Rouge and New Orleans. But per capita, we're outpacing them
Yes.
here in the city of Alexandria.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I mean that's the reality. Sometimes the information don't match up with what really is, but that is the reality. So what do you think about that?
Well, the first question that I need, or the first thing I need to do, is meet with your local law enforcement. We have to know what crimes are the most repetitive, because in order to bring a solution to a problem, you have to know where the problem starts. So I don't want to estimate where that crime comes from first, but I will agree and say that jobs deter crime. But federally, what that looks like is to ask the FBI, to ask Homeland Security, to ask other federal law enforcement to help us lower our crime. Maybe that's even declaring a state emergency or a city of emergency. I don't even know if that's a thing, but that's something that we need to look at, to declare a city of emergency by a federal representative. I don't think anybody's even thought about that. But if my district is suffering with that, we need the federal resources to come to this district and help us solve the issue. But the second part of that is backing law enforcement. It could, when I talk to the sheriffs and they're transparent with me, it could be that they don't feel supported, that they don't feel that when they arrest an individual, that they will be able to keep the individual. It's going to be meeting with judges and figure out, is the law tying your hands to prosecuting these individuals or sentencing these individuals to the max? Because if we have repeat offenders that are in Alexandria or all across CD6 that are continuously doing the same things, that's a problem. I can tell you, talking to law enforcement throughout my time in service, they know some criminals by name. I disagree with that. We shouldn't be saying, "Oh, I know who did that." We need to have them in prison and not getting out, or whatever. We need to find creative solutions, strategic solutions that keep these criminals from repeat offending. That's the goal. And to actually make harsher penalties. Make you think about, do I really want to suffer for this action? Do I really want to take this punishment for what I just did? That's huge. That's what we need to think about. And I will tell you this, one of the policies that I'm working on now, and I want to collaborate with law enforcement to see if it's a reality, is let's take theft. If you are stealing from a business or a local entity, is jail time the right thing for you? No, let's put these people on a fine. Let's give them a large fine, have them pay it back. We don't need to sentence everybody to jail and raise people's tax dollars. We need to start making the punishment for the crime equal to it and put these individuals on payment plans. Because if you're in the process of a crime and you are caught, are these people really going to be changed by jail? No, because they're out within 2 days. We need to have a lasting impression on these individuals. If you steal, you get a $10,000 fine that you have to pay back with no breaks. That's going to make you think about your actions before you do the crime.
And how do you just out of curiosity in your mindset, how do you separate perception of crime from actual crime data? How does that shape your policy as moving forward and working with the locals?
So I want you to dive deeper on that question for me, Jack. So what do you mean, the perception of a crime? What do you mean by that?
Well, here in Alexandria, there's a perception that crime doesn't exist, but we We are living it. So in essence, the, the the traditional way of getting that information, for some odd reason, it doesn't make it out to the public. And then when you go over here and you see the actual crime data that maybe the FBI collects, they don't match each other. And then we sit back and we argue about what really is, and so we get this false sense of safety and different things of that nature.
Well, I'll tell you this. First off, I'm sad. And the reason that I'm sad about that is crime has become so normal
Mm,
that people accept it. And that's probably why you see them saying that there's no crime. Because if somebody gets their house broken into, they're probably just saying, oh, that's normal. Or if
mm,
somebody's car is stolen, that's normal. It's not normal. And we have to change that mindset. We saw when the federal takeover of some of these cities, we see that one of the first things the FBI investigated was that local municipalities were hiding the actual data of the criminals because they didn't want the real numbers getting out. And so
interesting.
that's where it goes back to working with the local municipalities, the sheriffs, and the local law enforcement to let them know, look, we have your back. This is not a failure on your count, but if we don't know that there's an actual problem recorded, how can we help you? So crime is not normal. Americans should not have to live with their house broken into. I'm just going to say it like that. That's not normal. That should never become a normal part of society.
Mm,
Or having to shut your lights off at a certain time, or get burglar bars on your house. That should never have become common in our country. And that's because crime is not being dealt with properly. It's not being enforced. I see, I complain and people laugh at me, but I see more enforcement of people getting pulled over for speeding than actual criminals stealing. I've walked into a Target and 5 people are stealing TVs. Nothing happens. But
mhm.
there's more enforcement on me going on my way to work, going 10 miles over the speed limit.
Right.
That's an inconsistent weight of justice. But
Mhm.
it's not our law enforcement's fault.
No.
It's law enforcement are not being incentivized to solve crimes. And
Right.
so we need to flip it on its head and tell law enforcement, look, we back you. And here's why. But I will also tell you within the Black community, we also have to be compassionate to, are there consistencies where individuals may be, I don't even want to use the word targeted, but there may be bad apples in the bunch.
Mhm.
That takes communication from my office, not to start a race war, not to divide, not to get behind the pulpit and say law enforcement is racist. No, if there's a problem, the Bible says to go seek that individual, to have a conversation with that individual, not to blast them from the highest heights of the nation. So if there are inconsistencies in justice throughout CD6, my job is to meet with the law enforcement, figure out, okay, why is this happening? What actually is going on, to make sure that our law enforcement feel confident in their job, but also that the people are heard, protected, and defended.
Mhm. Mhm. You've been critical of the current representative. Specifically, what has not been done that you would do differently in your first year as?
Very good. So, not really the individual, just his actions. So, I never want to judge an individual. We've all fallen short of the glory of God, but you have certain expectations as a representative. You
Mhm.
don't get to steal money, you
Mhm.
don't get to lie, and you don't get to make millions of dollars while representing a district that can't hardly even afford to live in $1 million home. That's
Mhm.
not your job as a representative. So, my job as a representative is to live above reproach. That's rule number one. To work with any president in office, because here's the secret, Jack. If I was to take an adversarial role to a Democratic president without talking to them, do you think that our community would get resources? No. So, my job as an advocate is to work with the administration to make sure that the needs of my district are heard. It's not about Larry Davis, it's about CD6. So, if I walk in and the president sees me and says, oh, I don't like him because he don't like me, that's a problem. When I walk into a room, when I walk into Congress, they should see, oh, that's the representative for CD6. That's who we need. So what I would do differently is I'm representing everybody in the district, rather you're black or white. I'm representing every part of the education spectrum, rather you're North Baton Rouge or rather you're South Baton Rouge, rather you're on the west side of the parish or the south side of the parish. I don't believe in determining anybody by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. If you do a crime in CD6, you need to be punished for that crime. It doesn't matter if you're black, it doesn't matter if you're white, you need to be punished for a crime. And so we haven't seen that by the current representation. It's been very hands off. And I will even go as far as to say this. I talk to everyone. I've even tried to reach out to Democrats in the district now. Do you think they've returned our phone calls? No, that's a problem because you're putting your own selfishness above the needs of your people. That's not governance. That's called selfishness. And we don't need to have elected officials that only are worried about their limelight and keeping up with what people think of them. We need leaders who care about the people. And so it's tackling those issues and making sure the people are heard. I visited a school last week. Jack, do you know what these individuals requested of us?
Mm.
They requested hurdles. They didn't request $50 million. They didn't request a new building. They didn't request teacher pay raises. They didn't request anything outlandish.
Mhm.
They requested hurdles. Hurdles. That's it. So these are things that we're working on. My team is working on doing now because it can be done. It can be donated.
Mm.
So that's one of the biggest things that I'm going to do differently is be present. My job is not to go to DC and to forget where I come from. My job is to spend more time at home and be in DC when I have to be in DC. That's it.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, one thing I would say, this is just my observation, being
Yes.
in this media space and following and different things of that nature. I can say that in Central Louisiana, Congressman Fields, he has been here in our community, and in some of the public spaces that he's held, town hall style meetings, they have been communicated. I know we received the communications, and we published them. But what actually happens a lot of times is that like I know one of the larger ones that he had here was at Zion Hill, uh, Zion Hill Baptist Church over in Pineville, and I think some of the stuff that we are experiencing is just a hyper uh,
Polarization.
polarization that we're in, because I think even just a couple of weeks ago he was here at Bolton, and I think today, if I'm not mistaken, I had another engagement, but I think he was up at Northwood. So I'm just saying, I think some of it. Again, I'm not defending
Yeah,
the
and Jack, I
congressman.
would and Jack, I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. People
It
just
but it's
decide.
it's it's not to show up during it because we could, but you're still saying that crime and jobs are a problem.
It is.
So
Yeah.
just
Oh,
holding town halls when you're about to be reelected or not reelected, that's very convenient. So I want, when people say, for me, and this is what I say when people say, well, Larry, what scares you the most? I tell them winning, because now I have to deliver. And
That's
so I'm putting a
that's my next
lot of
question.
a lot
Go
of a lot of weight on me, and I want people to say in 2 years or a year and a half that I can actually see results,
Mm,
that they don't feel forced to vote for me, that he's not just coming around because it's campaign time,
mhm,
because he has been a representative before. He has been a congressperson before, years ago, and still parts of the district that he represented are still in plight. Plank Road is still a problem. So this is an individual that knows the political game, and I'm not just attacking him, but all of those who wear and run for office, either based on skin color or based on false pretenses, who say they're going to do one thing, they get in there, they get wealthy, and they treat us as if we're second class, as if they have to do a town hall. No, I want to do a town hall because when I talk to my people, y'all make my job a lot easier. I can go confidently vote on that issue without fearing what my people are going to say at home. I can do it with a sense of courage and passion. So that's all I'm saying. I'm glad that he's doing that. But what results have that brought you in parts of this whole entire district? People are still getting shot at parades. Jobs are still leaving. So meeting and talking and doing what your job is it going to bring solutions?
Mhm. Okay, I hear you. If elected, we as the people sitting out here, how will we be able to measure, benchmark?
Yeah.
What should voters use to judge your performance 12 months in?
Yes,
What
sir.
can, yeah.
So that's a good question. I
Uh-huh.
like this question. So my campaign offices, we are working. I'm trying to find technology. So I want a way that people within the district can let us know in real time how they feel. Other than like mailing, because we know most people use social media. So we're
Mhm.
trying to nail that down. We also, all of my campaign staff is going to have education centers in the office. So if there's ever a question about pieces of legislation that's being proposed in DC, my staff at the Alexandria office, at the St. Landry office, at the North Baton Rouge office will be you. If you're a constituent, you'll be able to walk in, ask questions, but we will also hold training seminars so that you know these are the federal pieces of legislation that are being voted on. This is how they impact you. Let me know how you feel if I'm not there when they're being discussed. We also, this is just the Baptist in me, but we're going to have some Bibles. So I want to be able to give out free Bibles to people when they come into the office. But the main thing is education, Jack. We have, and not just mailing, because mail, you get it and then you put it on your counter, your fridge, you throw it away. I want y'all to come in. I want y'all to feel comfortable coming into that office because that office is an extension of you. So my campaign team is we're still figuring out if that's Survey Monkey, if that's a text, how do we reach everybody in the district when we get there to see how we're doing? What are we missing? Where are we going? Because communication, like you said, is key.
Key. Yep.
It is.
Yeah. As a Republican candidate, are you seeking an endorsement from President Trump? Or are you more focused on local priorities?
Local priorities, and you could tell it by my campaign. The president's name, it has not come out in any of my agenda items or my priorities. I'm focused on the people, and that's what someone actually stopped me at a restaurant when I was eating and shaking their hand, and they said, "Which I want you to focus on this too, Jack, because it's psychological."
Mhm.
When I introduced myself, they said, "Are you a Democrat, Republican?" But they still shook my hand. They
Mhm.
still said, "Hey," before I said what party I was.
Mhm.
And when I said I was a Republican, the lady said, "Oh," she said, "Well, how do you feel about this?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm Larry Davis. All I can do is answer for Larry Davis." And so I'm devoted to the people of Louisiana. I'm devoted to the people of Congressional District 6.
If you receive no national endorsement, does that change your strategy?
No, sir. Because like we said before, endorsements don't vote, signs don't vote, people vote, which is why this district being drawn up the way that it is was completely wrong and ignorant for them to do it because people are not set by they're not decided by a political party. We're human beings. We're allowed to make choice. We're allowed to make decisions about the best candidate that we choose.
Mhm. And you referenced faith in your qualifying remarks.
Hmm.
How does faith guide policy decision without excluding people who believe differently?
Faith is my foundation. But to answer your question, this country survived for 249 years because of faith.
Mhm.
Faith ended segregation. Faith was the cause of the abolition of slavery.
Mhm.
Faith is the central thing to our Constitution and why we write our laws. We have seen the Christian faith get trampled on not only here, but in Africa. And it's unacceptable and it's wrong. And the the outcome of that reality is we see the breakdown of family. We see our country suffering. We see the rise in terrorism. We see the rise in murder and crime because people don't have a clear and firm direction. And
Mhm.
so you don't have to be a Christian to believe that murder is wrong. You don't have to be a Christian to know that killing and murdering babies is wrong. You don't have to be a Christian to know that you need money to be able to buy food to eat. You don't have to be a Christian to have common sense.
Mhm.
But anything outside of that, if we were to create and draft laws by people who don't have faith, well, you can see what that leads you in this country, and
Mhm.
it's not anything good.
Right. Larry, before we proceed to close out, man, do you have anything you'd like to say to the folk of Central Louisiana who, I saw a couple of comments out there, nothing major. So that's a good thing. um, yeah. So you have anything you want to say to the folk of Central Louisiana before we get out of here?
First, Jack, thank you. Central Louisiana, the heart of Louisiana, we're coming for you. And I want you to not grow apathetic to the process, but to have hope, to have faith, and to have belief. Your vote does matter. And I ask that no matter your political leanings, no matter your political party, trust that I will represent you with full faith and energy to get the job done. I won't use my skin color as a crutch. I won't use my political party as a way to be comfortable. I am a Louisianian. I am a regular person, and I'm ready to fight for you. And I hope that you will give me and my team that opportunity to show you that politics can be good if it's led by those who do not give in to a bribe and who have a righteous heart.
Larry, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. To our followers out there, thank you for continuing to make UrbanCast the community platform it is. A special thank you to our supporters, Sattlers Towing, Long Products, Legendary Kung Fu and Tai Chi, United Wrestling, Nader International Market, and the Threadhead Embroidery. We appreciate you for supporting independent community journalism. And join us on Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to be chatting with Charles Tucker, organizer of the 5th annual Evening of Spirituals that was held earlier in the month. He's going to tell us a little bit about how successful the program was, and we're just doing some after action reviews and that kind of thing. I'm Jack. This is UrbanCast. Good night, you guys, and good night, Central Louisiana. Larry, if you just hang on in there, man, I'm going to end this stream.
Okay.
Hey, did you know Long's Products is a family-owned janitorial supply with mops, brooms, trash bags, and they even have food service disposables, carry-out plates, and to-goes? Check us out.